That brings us to our public communications portion of the agenda. This is the time and place for the general public to address the Fire Board, Public Financing Authority Board, and City Council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda.
I'm an animal attorney. I just wanted to discuss a couple of the matters going on at Rancho Cucamonga Animal Center that have come to my attention. The Animal Center has a budget, an annual operating budget of about $2.5 million, yet they're keeping dogs in crates that are approximately, they're small travel crates that are so small that even an airline would not admit them for transport. These crates do not comply with the state definition of adequate space for an animal, which would require them to be able to stand up, sit down, turn around, and extend their limbs freely. They can't do that in these crates. They're kept in these crates not just for a short period of time. It's very difficult to see this photo, but they're kept sometimes for 8 weeks, at which point they're summarily killed. Generally, the justification given is that their behavior was bad, as if this sort of treatment is not conducive to that behavior in any way, shape, or form. Another thing I wanted to discuss was the adoption rates. City Manager John Gillison has put out information here. It's very hard to read, but it says, to date, we are still averaging an 80+% adoption rate, which is considerably higher than most other comparable municipal shelters. That's not entirely true. When I questioned him about that, I was given these statistics from January to September of 2012 from the city. These are the statistics. The adoptions for dogs were actually 47%, for cats 31%, for a combined average of 39%, which is about half of 80%. These terms have been they're using terms of art, which is typical for poorly run shelters. They use terms of art like unadoptable versus adoptable. They look at totals in terms of what they call live outcomes, and they have to sort of manipulate the numbers to present them in a way that's more favorable to them. There are a number of violations going on in the shelter of state law, another one being, for example, here you'll see that the owner requested euthanasia. During January to September, they killed 49 animals at the request of the owners. That's illegal under state law. It is absolutely prohibited. You cannot kill an animal because the owner doesn't want it anymore. There just are a number of things going on that are, that we've tried to address that are not, they're not listening, and they're not going to go unnoticed. These are things that people are starting to discuss more and more in the open media. The solution has been for the city of Rancho Cucamonga to just fire the people who have actually confronted them about this, and that's not going to go unnoticed either. It's an unacceptable practice. It's actually illegal, too. It's a violation of constitutional rights. And it can't continue. It's time to start cleaning the place up. The only thing I was told that I have an agenda. My agenda is transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla, for your opinion.
I'd like to quote Martin Luther King, Jr. There comes a time when silence is betrayal. My name is Jesse Kreider, and I am an employee at the Rancho Cucamonga Animal Care and Adoption Center. On November 11, 2012, I arrived at work in the field services office. There was a clearly visible Mark Steinorth for mayor sign. I thought that was odd considering he just ran and won city council, not mayor. He ran for mayor back in 2010, so not sure where that 2-year-old sign came from. The sign was brought up in conversation with my supervisor, Linda Wizarek. I noticed the sign had many visible holes in it, and my supervisor, Linda Wizarek, explained that she and other employees were using the sign as target practice in the play yard outside. Linda Wizarek said that they were just burning off steam. She also said that her subordinate, Heather Thomas, was going to further use the sign as target practice once she purchased a shotgun. Linda Wizarek further explained that some of the volunteers were supporting Mark Steinorth, and she discussed how they supported a different opponent for city council, although she did not say who they were supporting. This is a clear example of the hatred that management has towards certain volunteers and anyone they support, including Councilman Mark Steinorth. Politics are not supposed to be discussed in the workplace per the employee manual, but this disrespectful political act was not only allowed, it was supported and participated in by shelter management. I know for a fact that shelter director Veronica Fincher knew about this behavior as well. On November 15, 2012, Mark Steinorth came into the shelter to introduce himself to the shelter employees. He made the rounds, including the field services office where I was introduced to him, and he left shortly after. Right after Mark left, I overheard shelter director Veronica Fincher say, "Good thing I had Linda get rid of that sign. That wouldn't have been appropriate." She said this in the hallway for anyone within earshot to hear. There is no accountability at the shelter. The managers, employees, and volunteers that Director Veronica Fincher favors can do whatever they want without consequence, no matter how wrong or inappropriate it may be. This is just one example of the hatred that is not only condoned by management, but also encouraged. This is the animal shelter. We are supposed to be here for the animals. To take away the rights of volunteers who give up their free time to help animals is just vindictive. To encourage hatred of these volunteers, Councilman Steinworth, who has no control over who supports him, and any employee the director wants out, is wrong. I know I am risking retaliation by being a whistleblower, but I will no longer be silent when I see inappropriate acts in shelter and the mistreatment towards the animals and the volunteers.
I began as a volunteer in April 2007 at the Rancho Cucamonga Animal Center. I was also a part-time employee for the center and was also the Best Friends Grant Coordinator for the year of 2011. When the grant program ended, I met with Director Veronica Fincher to discuss how we wanted to do all that we could to help continue with successful programs such as playgroups, videos, off-site adoptions, training classes, and promotions. However, by February 2012, it was made very clear that many of these programs that had been run and conceptualized by volunteers would no longer continue, even though it cost the shelter no money and was a clear way to help promote and get these animals out of the center. When volunteers approached Ms. Fincher to ask why volunteer help was being denied, we were subsequently branded as insubordinate troublemakers, not only to her management team, but to other staff, volunteers, and to the City Council. After a group of volunteers attended the City Council meeting on June 20th, 2012, begging the Council to meet to discuss how the center was getting further away from its no-kill goal, Ms. Fincher cornered a volunteer at the center and told them that she couldn't believe they attended the meeting with that group. When the volunteer related this story to us, we decided to turn a negative into a positive. So that group became our name, Together Helping Animals Thrive. And as you can see, our group has grown just beyond 4 or 5 disgruntled volunteers. In November 2012, myself and 3 other longtime volunteers who have collectively given over 3,000 hours of free service to the center were illegally fired. One of these reasons was for speaking out against conditions and the killing of animals that volunteers had no issues working with and who could have been saved if given the chance. This is an image of several of the dogs who were saved, 47 urgent dogs who were saved by several of the fired volunteers. This is just a few of them shown here. Many were deemed to be problem dogs and would have very easily ended up being killed. We were also responsible for filming over 120 adoption videos, with over 90 animals being adopted or rescued based solely on their videos. Since being fired, only 3 adoption videos are currently present on the website, when at one point there were more than 20 at a time. Playgroups were at their height, being held 3 to 4 days a week for both small and large dogs, and now only held once a week and run by paid staff. How is this an effective use of taxpayer money when you fired the free help that were running these programs? There's a solution to shelter killing, and it's not difficult, expensive, nor beyond practical means to achieve, and it does not need a 5-year plan. But it does require shelter management to adhere to the highest standards of professionalism and innovation, rather than just killing in the face of alternatives they simply refuse to implement. This is a documentation of some of the living conditions that we've seen of animals in the center. When animals are living in these types of conditions in crates for weeks at a time and offers to help them are ignored, made fun of, or even considered hostile, what does that say about current shelter management?
Thank you very much for your opinion.
I'm here on behalf of the 5, soon to be probably 6 volunteers once this guy's fired, for being here and speaking out. The baseline for any good shelter is this volunteer program. They're what makes any positive, genuine shelter do a good job. So this shelter and most shelters claim a lot of things, money shortages, whatnot. A shelter cannot claim lack of staff, lack of resources, lack of money, lack of time, lack of effort, lack of energy, while at the same time letting go of a laundry list of their volunteers for simply speaking out against conditions. This question needs to be asked. Do these guys genuinely care about the animals, or are they just covering their backsides? And the suppression of the information that the general public wouldn't be too thrilled with, which is what these volunteers are speaking out about. Some of the things, for example, are how the essential programs are being cut and phased out, how the play groups are being stopped, how offers from the volunteers are being ignored, how volunteers are no longer allowed to take pictures or video at the shelter, how certain dogs are never seeing the adoption floor, how certain dogs spend over 23 plus hours a day in travel crates in the hallway, how labels are being used to justify killing and create false adoption numbers, because once they call dogs unadoptable or aggressive, they get to hide those dogs from the official kill numbers. Now, retaliation against volunteers is unconstitutional, and I'm sure everybody here knows that. The First Amendment of the Constitution gives each and every citizen the freedom of speech, the right to complain, the right to petition. This right in no way can be trampled on by anyone, let alone people within a taxpayer-funded animal shelter. If the shelter manager claims otherwise, she's simply not telling the truth. People are certainly entitled to having the benefit of being a volunteer, giving their free time. That's the foundation of any positive shelter. So this retaliation against these people, many who have spoke, many who will speak, is embarrassing. And if it's not addressed, we will not go away. This room will probably double in size next time.
Good evening. My name is Susan Keithley. I was a volunteer at the shelter since January 2007 until I was fired this past November. Animal Services Director, ideal candidate. Let's see how Director Veronica Fincher has performed in 2012. Communication. Director Fincher and City Manager Gillison relayed a false version of a June 7th meeting to City Council via news and notes dated June 15th. It was full of mistruths about us and embellished Fincher's role and closing statement at the meeting. After confronting Gillison, he said he would clear it up with City Council. I don't know if he did, but serious damage was already done. Accountability. The shelter is not being truthful regarding the increase of killings and treatment of crated dogs. Veronica is not giving City Council a correct number of active volunteers. The live release rate is overstated. Her solution to population control is killing, not rescue or thinking outside the box. Team orientation. We had the same concerns with the leadership team that is still in place. Our goals are the same since 2010, that animals should be well cared for and get them out alive. Veronica favors other volunteers. She uses bonus hours for recognition, their favorite dogs getting special treatment, a job at the shelter where they will be trusted to report on volunteers and staff. Many other volunteers who were with us in the beginning are afraid to speak out after seeing our dogs killed and now us getting illegally fired. Results-oriented. Director Fincher will fly Chihuahuas out at about $600 per dog, but not let another successful rescue take 20 small dogs, zero cost. White Sox, a cat, left at the shelter by its owners for 8 months. An adoption was refused, and then Veronica drives the cat to LAX to be flown back to its owners and makes a big deal out of it after killing hundreds of other cats. Leadership. More animals have died and suffered under her care than ever before. Veronica makes over $100,000 per year plus benefits and $500 per month car allowance. She brought no fresh ideas with her. She copies Pasadena where she came from. She lies, and I refuse to ever meet alone with her, and you heard Field Officer Jesse speak about corruption. On my November 11th firing, I told Veronica I was recording our meeting. Walking down the hall to her office, I saw the Mark Stein North for Mayor sign in the Fields officer's room. If I could see it, Veronica saw it, and I would bet Chris Paxton from HR saw it too. Financial responsibility. She did raise $24,000 at Furry Friends, but where's all that money going? Why do the dogs have to still sleep on cold concrete, and why are there never enough squeegees so sharing would not spread disease? Management approach. Veronica will enable those managers who manage like she does, rewarding those devoted to her, and passive-aggressive, vindictive if you question her. She fired us illegally based on untruths. She allows the kennel manager to treat volunteers and animals poorly. And the kennel manager has been in that position since September of 2009.
Thank you, Susan.
And that is when conflict and dirty kennels and staff volunteering trouble started.
Thank you.
I want to talk about the animal shelter for a minute. You know, my little dog Crunch, I've told you about Crunch. Crunch has been in the animal shelter 3 times now. The first time we lost him, he was only out for about 15 minutes, and somebody took him down to the animal shelter. And that particular time, we found him on the mug shots on the internet cameras, because they didn't know who he was. Anyway, we had him a microchip put in him when I picked him up. And that has turned out to be the best thing that we ever did, because he's twice since he was gone for like 5 weeks, I told you, and somebody finally turned him in, and they were so excited when they got to the animal shelter and found out he had a microchip. And the lady who was working at the counter, she called him by name Crunch, and she said you could just see the demeanor on the dog change when they called him Crunch. You know, and he got picked up a second. He got out again. Got picked up a second time, and of course the microchip program really works good because they call you right away, and you know, it's unfortunate the Crunch keeps getting out. But you know, each time I go through the animal shelter, and I mean it's busy. I mean, you've got a lot of work out there. You know, I think people bring their pets from all over the county to drop them off at our animal shelter because they know we're going to do a better job than maybe some of those other cities that aren't as you know, Rancho Cucamonga is the #1 city in the county, and I can see where people who want to drop their pets off want to drop them in the #1 city in the county. They think their pet will be better taken care of than if they drop them off in some other city. But I got to tell you that the animal shelter is certainly better than it was under the county. And I got to tell you, I mean, I looked at it in the county. I've seen what they did in the county, and I mean, I think we do a much better job than the San Mateo County. You know, I complained about, you know, a lot of volunteers, they don't understand, you know, when animals, you give out bad karma, and boy, the animals can feel it, and that's something they need to look at, because these animals need to be in a good karma environment. Their temperament actually depends, especially when they're being caged in like they are, their temperament depends, and if these people all got bad karma, these dogs will reflect in that. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I'm here on behalf of some of the volunteers that have been, you know, kicked out of the shelter for reporting on animal abuse and corruption. And it's a shame that it has to go down this way, where we have to sit here for 5 minutes in between a lot of different subjects to talk about corruption. That the community's coming here and saying something's going wrong, showing you pictures, and you know, and then we talk about eating potato chips with God, and it's a great poem, and the prayers are great, but at the end of the day, your community's coming forward and they're telling you that something's wrong, you know, and we heard a lot about community in the very beginning. We heard about the toy drive, and we're hearing about this wonderful house that the community's coming forward to try to support. And my question would be that if during this toy drive that we heard about at the beginning of this meeting, if some of the volunteers there that had spent all their time working and sorting through these toys found somebody stealing these toys and selling these toys and abusing these toys, would we fire those volunteers? No, I don't think we would. But that's exactly what's going on at this shelter. So again, you guys can make the difference. I mean, we can all make the difference. Social media is going to broadcast this thing, and we're going to podcast this thing and talk about this thing. I came here all the way from Ventura County to support some of these people. But you guys can make the difference. So I hope you guys take this seriously, and I hope you guys understand that this is animal abuse and corruption. What's going on here is not bad karma from volunteers. I'm sorry. What's going on here is animals that are stacked 4 cages high. And that's disgusting.
Moving on to our consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the Fire Board, Authority Board, Council at one time without discussion. Any item may be removed by a Fire Board, Authority Board, or Council member for discussion. So move on to our consent calendar, Fire Protection District.
Second. Move approval.
Okay.
Sorry.
Motion and second, please vote.
The motion was carried 3-0-2-0 with Mayor Michael and Councilmember Steinnorth being absent.
When we get to the one for the, I'm sorry, Sam, and I should have done this, I apologize. M13, I thought we were going to do it as we did before. I really want to discuss M13 before we go forward with approval on what this gentleman came here to represent tonight. My apologies for...
Is that under...
Yes, it was under the one approved. I
No,
will
we didn't
withdraw
approve it
my,
yet.
We've
vote.
just done the fire protection district, so the council.
Okay.
We're on,
All right.
we just
Just
did
fire
J.
protection.
Okay,
Consent calendar, successor agency.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Move for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Please vote. Consent calendar, public financing authority.
Move approval.
Second.
Please vote. This is the one here, Bill.
Yeah.
For city council.
Okay, my ears stuffed up.
Which one?
M13.
Okay.